Dear student, I am back for the next part of our discussions. Since my last session was about main feature of sexual reproduction. Hi, I am Kiran. In this session, I am discussing with you about differences between asexual and sexual reproduction. Student, in enlisting differentiating characters, comparing characters, you need to understand certain measures. Dear student, sometimes the characters are alike, while some other times it's not as obvious. In order to write successful characters of comparison, you have to analyze how these characters are related together. Examine both the characters. Take basic points for these characters of comparison. Take short notes in relation with these characters of comparison. Establish purpose of comparison. By establishing, you are laying foundation for your comparison. Dear student, let us start the magnificent way of differentiating the characters with respect to asexual and sexual reproduction. Then, next point is process. On the basis of process, we can consider asexual reproduction is uniparental. It is uniparental process. Means single parent involved in this process. Asexual reproduction is a uniparental process where single parent is sufficient to produce a new offspring. It is uniparental in the sense single parent is involved in asexual reproduction. This single parent is sufficient to produce a new offsprings. In case of sexual reproduction, this is a biparental. Sexual reproduction is biparental type of reproduction involving two different parents. Here, two different parents are involved. Involving two different parents, except in case of hermaphrodite. We will discuss that one later on. So simple, asexual reproduction is uniparental where single parent is involved. The single parent is enough to produce offspring, but here two parents are involved, that is why it is called as a biparental. Then next one is involvement of gametes. Let us consider that is involvement of gametes. Here in asexual reproduction, gametes are not involved. So here gametes are not involved. In case of asexual reproduction, gametes are not involved. In case of sexual reproduction, gametes plays a very important role in producing offsprings, so that gametes are involved in sexual reproduction. Then reproductive units. On the basis of reproductive units, we can differentiate in this way. Here, reproductive units are somatic cells. These cells are not sex cells, these are found all over the body. So here, somatic cells acts as reproductive units during asexual reproduction. Somatic cells acts as reproductive units during asexual reproduction. But here gametes acts as the reproductive units during sexual reproduction. It is the most important character. What happens here, if you consider the reproductive units in both of these types of sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction, in case of asexual reproduction, somatic cells acts as reproductive units. These somatic cells are not at all sex cells. These are the cells which are found all over the body. But the gametes are sex cells, specialized sex cells, so that in sexual reproduction, reproductive units are gametes. Then next one is fertilization. It's very important. That is fertilization. Fertilization does not occur during sexual reproduction. Here, in case of asexual reproduction, it doesn't occur. It doesn't occur in case of asexual reproduction, but in sexual reproduction, fertilization is important phenomenon. Sexual reproduction occurs with the fertilization of male and female gametes. So here fertilization takes place. That fertilization occurs. So fertilization means it takes place between the male and female gametes. It can be either internal or external. So this is how, on the basis of fertilization, we can differentiate asexual reproduction from sexual reproduction. Then cell division. Next point is cell division. Here, in asexual reproduction, that is, asexual reproduction occurs by a series of mitotic divisions. Remember, here series of mitotic divisions takes place. Asexual reproduction occurs by series of mitotic divisions, but there is no meiotic divisions. Remember, here no meiotic divisions. Asexual reproduction occurs by series of mitotic divisions. No meiotic divisions are involved. But in case of sexual reproduction, in sexual reproduction, it occurs by series of mitotic as well as meiotic divisions, as well as that is meiotic divisions. So that here, on the basis of cell division, we can differentiate asexual reproduction from sexual reproduction in this way. In asexual reproduction, what happens? Only mitotic division takes place, but there is no meiotic division. But in case of sexual reproduction, both mitotic and meiotic divisions takes place. Then, on the basis of chromosomes, So here the chromosomes remain diploid. The chromosomes remain diploid during asexual reproduction. That is, diploid means these are having 2n number of chromosomes. But in case of meiosis, meiosis produces haploid chromosomes. Meiosis produces haploid chromosomes during sexual reproduction. That's why meiosis is known as a reductional division. Haploid nature of chromosome means consisting of only n number of chromosomes. That is why here in asexual reproduction we will find diploid chromosome, and in case of meiosis haploid chromosomes are produced. Then move on to the next point, that is diversity. So here what happens in case of diversity? There is no genetic diversity in asexual reproduction. No genetic diversity. No genetic diversity in case of asexual reproduction. No genetic diversity is brought about by asexual reproduction, but sexual reproduction is important for introducing genetic diversity. It is important for introducing genetic diversity. It is important for introducing genetic diversity within a population. So this is how we can differentiate asexual reproduction from sexual reproduction on the basis of diversity. Then speed of both of these phenomena. The process of sexual reproduction is rapid. It is rapid process which is useful for organisms whose strategy to survive is to reproduce rapidly. So this is simply a rapid process, asexual reproduction. The process in case of sexual reproduction, the process is also, it is comparatively slower as the production of offsprings in sexual reproduction occurs less rapidly. So that is why it is comparatively slower mode of sexual reproduction. So the sexual reproduction is comparatively slower here. Dear student, next one is of about organs. Organisms reproducing asexually do not, remember, do not have specialized reproductive organs or else structures. Organisms reproducing asexually do not have specialized reproductive organs, but whereas organisms reproducing sexually have specialized structures, means reproductive structures, have specialized reproductive structures or else organs. So the organisms which are having ability to possess asexual reproduction are not at all having specialized reproductive organs, but the organisms reproducing sexually have specialized reproductive organs. Then next one is of about offsprings. So here the offsprings formed by asexual reproduction are genetically identical. So important one, are genetically identical, remember. But in case of sexual reproduction, offsprings which are produced are genetically different, or genetically different, because here exchange of genetical information takes place in between two parents. That is why the offsprings produced during sexual reproductions are genetically different. Then next one is of about importance. It's very important one. Asexual reproduction is important as it allows the continuity of genetic information, because asexual reproduction, it allows continuity of genetic information. It's very important. That is, continuity of genetic information is possible in case of asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is important as it allows the continuity of genetic information through different generations. Remember, from one generation to the next generation. In case of sexual reproduction is important as it brings genetic variation. Genetic variation. It brings genetic variation which allows the evolution to proceed. That is, here genetic variation leads to important phenomena, that is evolution. I repeat it once again, the importance of both of these phenomena measured in terms of continuity of genetic information and genetic variation. Here in asexual reproduction is important as it allows the continuity of genetic information through different generations, and sexual reproduction is important as it brings genetic variation which allows the evolution to proceed. Dear student, this is all of about difference between asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. In the next section, we will discuss other phenomena which are related with sexual reproduction. Thank you. Dear student, in this session we have discussed almost 13 to 14 differentiating characters. Don't restrict yourself in studying limited number of differentiating characters. You have to practice, understand all these differentiating characters. Student, please subscribe the channel Kiran and be a part in scattering the fragrance of knowledge. I hope everything is going on well. Take care. Thank you once again.